Alrighty, guys, it is iFreeze700. We are back. This time with Who the Hell is Darth Krayt? Now, you will need to be filled in on the previous video, which is Who is Asharad Het video. But for those of you who have already watched, let's continue his story. For he becomes Darth Krayt. Da-na-na. Well, after being defaced and disgraced and disarmed by Obi-Wan Kenobi, he becomes a mercenary. And where we next see Asharad Het, he is on Korriban chasing down a bounty. Now what's really interesting is that he chases his bounty down into a Sith tomb. And the criminal full-on threatens Asharad Het, and he goes, "I know you're a Jedi. You bring me over to whoever it is, and I'll tell them you're a Jedi. Then that way they don't care about my bounty, they'll care about your bounty." And Asharad Het goes, "I would get paid the same whether you're dead or alive." And he turns on his lightsaber and totally kills this dude. Which, one, I think is badass as fuck. But two, I always think is like funny as hell. Well, despite falling and pretty much failing as a Jedi Master, and now he's just roaming through the galaxy as an exile of Tuskens and an exile of the Jedi. He has a robotic arm now, which is great. Cool. We only get it for like a split second. But he comes across this weird sound in the Sith tomb calling out to him. This weird echo in the Force that's reaching out to him. And it is Lord Zenoa. Now, I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. It's a very wicked name. It's like Xinoan. It's kind of weird. Zenoa. But Lord Zenoa is a very interesting figure indeed. She was one of the first Sith Lords that ever existed. So we're talking over 7,000 years ago, this Sith Lord ruled. Now, she is a little wicked, but she's known for a lot of interesting things. One is that she's actually the best healer the galaxy has ever seen. And she is a Sith. This goes back to my more previous discussions on my live streams and stuff where I tell people that healing is not a light side thing. That was actually considered a dark side because it's unnatural to heal your body. Whereas if you're a light side, you wouldn't mind if your body is scarred. You wouldn't mind because you're more tied to the afterlife, the Force. Well, Xenon or Zenoa, however you prefer to pronounce it. I always call her Zenoa. It sounds more exotic. But the interesting thing about Zenoa is that she reaches out to Darth Krayt, known as Asharad Het, the mercenary at this time. And she tells him, "I too have been failed by the Jedi's teachings. I found them wanting. But now that I see a kindred spirit, my teaching shall be bestowed upon you." And she teaches him the ways of the Sith. Now, what's interesting about this is that for thousands of years, others have tried to access her holocron. Many Sith Lords, in fact, who are really great Sith Lords, have tried to access her holocron, her data, and she full-on refused them, saying that only one who has found emptiness in the teachings shall open her holocron, which is very interesting. So that means that you have to be someone who is lost, essentially. That you've looked really deep into the Jedi Code, and you've looked really deep into the dogmas of being a Jedi, and you just found it empty, purposeless. And this is where Zenoa teaches Darth Krayt. She teaches him about power, and about how power works. Mind you, she was around when Ajunta Paul created the Sith. She was around for the longest time. She was around back when Jedi and Sith would wage war against each other in the thousands, not individual Lord of Two like Darth Bane had set up. So she teaches Darth Krayt the Sith teachings, but he hasn't quite yet fallen. You see, this is kind of the weird part. He hasn't quite yet taken on the mantle of Darth Krayt. It's not quite yet. Well, next time Darth Krayt decides to tell us about his past, he immediately jumps ship to when he's captured by the Yuzong Vong. Now, you may think that's kind of a bit of a time skip, but really it's not. As I said, that robotic arm is only for like a split second. Because you see, the Yuzong Vong view technology as heresy. And when they see his robotic arm and his cybernetic eye, they decide to replace those with organic ones. Now, the reason why they replaced with organic ones is kind of a two-purpose fold. One, it's heresy to allow these cybernetics. But two, the augmented limbs can be tortured. So, hey, now we have extra nerves to prod and extra nerves to set aflame. Well, either way, while Asherad is trapped in this ship, this scout vessel, there is actually a old Jedi Master who lives among the Yuzong Vong, and for whatever reason they tolerate him. But he is known as Vane. Now, Vane is interesting because he later turns one of Luke Skywalker's kids into Darth Krayt. So that's a very interesting story we can cover some other time. But Vane decides to discuss philosophy and half-truths with Asherad Het while he is imprisoned. And he gives him some information, like, who the Yuzong Vong are, why they're doing what they're doing. They just like to torture just to torture. But they're also trying to study Force sensitives. And here's Asherad Het, a very powerful Force sensitive. So, hey, may as well just torture him, experiment on him. They plant a few experimental bugs in him that were supposed to be like slave bugs, force you to do their bidding, but without killing you. They didn't really work that way, though, for Asherad Het. They still ended up slowly over time killing him. But it did actually give him his own set of armor, his own natural protection against anything. So, hey, I guess it worked. That's what gives him his gnarly juggernaut appearance, is actually the bone armor that was inscribed onto his body. But over time, it would kill him. That was the downside of his experimentation. Well, while Vane and Darth Krayt discuss matters, this is where Darth Krayt fully succumbs to the dark side, where he engages in agony, hatred, pain, fear, and he actually reminds himself of Zenoa's teachings and fully embraces the dark side. And here he engages discussions with Vane talking about the Sith, how the rule of two is a bad thing, that before the rule of two there were thousands of Sith, there were thousands of them, and they made the galaxy quake beneath their boots. And Vane said that may be true, but the problem is that when you have that many Sith, it goes against the Sith teachings, which is that everyone must be able to seek power. Well, if you have thousands of people seeking power, that means you have thousands of people killing each other instead of just one and two. You got one guy who's the master who holds power, and you got the second guy who seeks it. That is the rule of two. And upon which Darth Krayt goes, yeah, but how the fuck is two guys supposed to fight against thousands of Jedi? If anything, the rule of two, it promises you power, which is great. But once you have that power, what else? Your next goal is to just simply get usurped by someone who's stronger. So inevitably, having power is purposeless. It's useless. It's great you have it. You can make worlds tremble. Great. But you're not doing anything with that power. And Vane finds his thoughts amusing and goes, whenever I have an apprentice, I'll tell them stories about you. You're a very odd specimen indeed. And upon which Vane disembarks and disappears from the Yuzong Vong ship. Upon which Darth Krayt decides, it's time for me to break out too. And utilizing the powers of the Sith and the dark side, he breaks out of the ship. Now, when he breaks out, he is left with this interesting dilemma. He is strong, but he could be stronger, so he goes to Korriban. Now, the issue he's got is that he could go out there and warn the New Republic, the Galactic Alliance, and the Empire saying, hey, the Yuzong Vong are coming, and you guys will be caught off guard unless I warn you. Or he could just simply not warn them and build up his own Sith cult on Korriban, build up his own army on Korriban, and get ready for when it's right for him to invade the galaxy. Well, Darth Krayt decides, I'm not going to warn the New Republic and the Empire. I'm not going to warn them at all. Let trillions die throughout the galaxy. That's fine with me, as long as the galaxy is ready to serve me. So, that's what he does. And for the next few years, that's what he does. He gathers up a lot of followers, a lot of Sith believers who believe in his creed, his ideals, that they should return to the one Sith philosophy. The one Sith philosophy is that there are thousands of Sith, and they all serve the one guy, the one man in charge. This, of course, has many of its own downfalls. It's actually interesting is that at one point, Darth Krayt is seeking a cure to his body to cure himself of the Yuzong Vong armor that has been helping him but also killing him over time. And when he consults with the Sith Lords, it's very interesting to know who pops up. One, you have Darth Bane, then you have Darth Nihilus, but then you have Darth Antdedu. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. A lot of these Sith have weird-ass names. But it's very interesting that he chose these 3 Sith Lords to contact, because each of these Sith Lords dealt with their own physical bodies, limitations, parasites, and deformities, and yet they overcame it with dark teachings of the Force. And it's really interesting because even these Sith Lords do not like Darth Krayt and his teachings. They view them as a perversion of what is working, of what is true. And Darth Krayt decides to engage in that philosophical debate again with these Sith Lords, going, hey, before you guys, there was thousands of Jedi. What happened? Why is that wrong? You guys seek power, but then you don't use it for any purpose. You don't bring order to the galaxy like I seek. And that's really what Darth Krayt is after, is he's trying to bring order to the galaxy, that the galaxy is in total chaos, and it needs to be put into control. It needs to be put into order, because if this disorder keeps happening, then more people are going to die, more bad things are going to happen. So in the end, Darth Krayt has justified to himself, in a good guy way, why it is he needs to take over the entire galaxy. Well, what's really interesting with the Sith Lords is that they all turn their back on him. They don't actually help him out. And Darth Nihilus in particular says he hasn't sacrificed enough, which is interesting. That's a very interesting idea. The idea that he may be a Sith, he may be imbued with the dark side, but he didn't lose anything. He didn't break the chains that are around him. This is kind of the whole creed of the Sith motto. Without any sort of sacrifice, you didn't really break your chains. You didn't break free. You didn't unshackle yourself. Instead, he's shackling the rest of the Sith to this philosophy that they have to serve him, and it's just a total perversion of the Sith ideas. Mind you, he never sacrificed his Tusken tribe. That would have been a Sith maneuver, to sacrifice his own family for power. He didn't break free of the Jedi Code and decide to break free of their teachings. No, he just wandered away from it and got exiled from it because he found no purpose in it. That's very different than what the Sith believe and what they teach. So, of course, none of the Sith Lords don't really help him. They say he just hasn't lost enough. He hasn't sacrificed anything. Now, of course, he's willing to sacrifice trillions of people in order to build his power. He's willing to sacrifice people later on in his career and his life. But the thing was, though, is that he was never willing to sacrifice people in order to become a Sith. He only sacrificed people once he already was a Sith. There's a big difference between the two. And I find a very interesting distinction that they draw with all the Sith Lords and such, is that Darth Krayt did not actually engage in this sort of regretful behavior that all the Sith Lords have in common, where they kill their brother in pursuit of power, or in pursuit of anger or hatred, or they go around and sacrifice everything that they held dear, their wife, their kids, just in the pursuit of more knowledge, more power. Like, he's never done that. And as such, he may be a Sith Lord in name, but he is not a Sith Lord in ideals. So, it's a very interesting discussion that you guys could probably have in the comments. So, with time being a relatively costly thing for Darth Krayt, because over time he will die to these implants that the Yuzong Vong have implanted into him, what Darth Krayt is starting to do is he's starting to enter into stasis. I'm not joking, he literally suspends his body, and he uses the Force to interact with Darth Werlock. And Darth Werlock is one of his most loyal followers, who was there for him since the beginning, who was really endowed and really loved Darth Krayt's philosophy of the Sith. Well, Darth Werlock organizes everything. He organizes all the troops. He organizes all the Jedi. He organizes a lot. And he keeps Darth Krayt informed as to galactic events. Like the Yuzong Vong are deleted. Now the Grand Alliance and the New Empire are having their issues. It's actually very interesting what's going on in the galaxy at the moment. You see, the Yuzong Vong are still alive in the galaxy, and there's a lot of resentment for it. The Yuzong Vong Wars killed trillions of people. Trillions. That's a lot. And the Yuzong Vong are now being granted citizenship in both the Empire and the Grand Alliance. That is not settling well with anybody. Essentially what's going on here is that many barren worlds have been contracted to be rebuilt. Some of these worlds are barren because of the war from the Yuzong Vong, and some of these worlds are barren like Korriban, where they're just barren because they're so, imbued with the dark side, or just their hostile environment to begin with. So the Yuzong Vong have amazing genetic and biological technologies. So what's going on here is that the Jedi organize this treaty where essentially the Yuzong Vong are allowed to live in the Grand Alliance and in the Empire, but in exchange they will be closely monitored by the Jedi. Like all the Yuzong Vong controllers who are making this biological technology and are terraforming these worlds will have a lightsaber at their back the entire time. And this is just in case they decide to do something stupid. Now, this is for a lot of purposes. For the Jedi, they argue this is good for everybody. You get more worlds to inhabit. They undo the damage that was done. And with more planets, that means that there's more life in the galaxy than there ever was before. But a lot of people were really pissed at the Jedi, really pissed at the Grand Alliance, really pissed at the Emperor himself. And they were all saying, this is bullshit. This is a bad idea. Are you kidding me? Those guys massacred my family. They massacred the planet that I was from. Hell no. Let's massacre these people. Let's kill them. Genocide time, baby. Hell yeah. So it wasn't a good situation. Well, this is where Darth Krayt decides, oh yeah, now is the time for me to rise. Both governments are extremely weak. And right now the people are looking for new leadership. It's time for me to rise. So what he does is he also organizes a few terrorist acts, like he manipulates some of the Yuzong Vong technology to make it where some of the worlds end up becoming damaged further instead of healed, because he deploys his own secret Yuzong Vong weapons that he's been hoarding. But really what he does that's really interesting is he straight up kills the Emperor. Now, the Emperor and the Empire at this time is very different than the Empire you guys may be thinking of back in like Star Wars Episode 7 or Episode 6. Like, it is very different. The Empire now is very neutral, arguably. They're not evil anymore. They're not good guys. Sometimes they do the right thing. And now they have this new section of guards called the Imperial Knights, the Empire Knights. Now, these knights are really amazing because they wear huge red armor, just like the guys before, but they also have white lightsabers. Really fucking cool, really fucking badass. And they are trained in the ways of the Jedi, the way of the Force. But they are not good guys per se. They just strictly tie their allegiance to the Emperor. Now, unbeknownst to Darth Krayt, the Emperor was trained as an Imperial Knight. So, when Darth Krayt storms the throne, killing all the Imperial Knights and then killing the fake Emperor on the throne, he figured, oh, this has to be the Emperor. He's just this weak man who's literally just sitting in a chair. No. The real Emperor actually is an Imperial Knight. He is actually Force sensitive. He would have defended himself if he was there. Well, the Emperor decided to go into hiding because he knew ahead of time that this was not going to be good. No one in the Empire supports him. The only people who supported him would have been the Imperial Knights. This is not a good scenario. So he pretty much hid with his family, and Darth Krayt was none the wiser for many, many years later until he found out that the real Emperor is still alive. And this is very important because this is where people are starting to second guess Darth Krayt's rule. But let's cut it back a little bit here. Darth Krayt, now that he's in charge of the Empire, he totally takes over the galaxy. He just kicks ass. He takes over Coruscant again from the Grand Alliance, which hasn't been done in well over 100 years. So for a long time, Coruscant was no longer held by the Empire. Well, now the Empire owns Coruscant again, and he reestablishes it as the head of the Empire. Pretty crazy, if you ask me. But with this, he has many, many, many Sith followers. And with this, he rebuilds Korriban. He makes Korriban more like a city place. He rebuilds Lord Zenoa's shrine. And now it's a shrine that everyone goes to for healing and such. He really rebuilds a lot of the galaxy. And he does do what he says he promised to do, which is restore order to the galaxy. The only problem is, of course, is that he's a Sith. And a lot of his Sith followers do engage in passions. They engage in just impulsivity, really. Just occasional barbarism, where they'll just randomly flay somebody, they'll randomly kill somebody. And it is becoming hard for Darth Krayt to keep everything under control. This is where many people start to betray him. This is where the Empire starts to reform under their new emperor. Now they found him again. And they're starting to claim that Darth Krayt is a fake emperor on the throne because he didn't rightfully kill the other guy. It is a really bad political situation right now. With this, though, Darth Krayt also keeps having to go into stasis because his armor is getting more and more aggressive. Like, there are actual times where he loses control of himself and he becomes this feral beast where the armor just takes over his mind. And he just becomes this crazed berserker where it takes him a while to regain control. So he has to keep going into stasis. He's really just an absent emperor, and this is the reason why the Empire starts to betray him later on. Eventually, though, just to make push come to shove, he finds out that there is a descendant of Luke Skywalker still alive, which is amazing because Darth Krayt thought he killed them all. But this is actually good news. His name is Cade Skywalker. Now, Cade is kind of a jackass. You see, Cade Skywalker is, I don't know how else to say it. He's really just a rebel, kind of. He's just a thug. He's a jackass. Essentially, he's got his own crew of mercenaries and friends, and they go around doing criminal jobs here and there. He uses a gun. He doesn't really want to learn the Force at times. And there's this Jedi who keeps telling him that he's destined for great things, and he keeps helping him out, kind of like a father figure, but Cade keeps telling him, just go away, dude, leave me the fuck alone. But the thing with Cade is that he is truly, truly a neutral character. Like, he's not a good guy, essentially. He's just not a good guy, period. He's not evil, though, either, and that's the thing. Well, when Darth Krayt finds out that Cade Skywalker's alive and he realizes this, Cade has a talent for healing. He can heal people, but only when he engages in the dark side. So every time he gets into anger or fear and his eyes turn yellow, that's when he can heal people. Left with no other option, Darth Krayt decides to capture Cade and teach him the ways of the Sith. This is where Darth Talon is teaching him, and she tells him the ways of the Sith. She tells him the way things work in this new regime. That they are not monsters. They're not these terrible, evil people. They just are Sith. They all devote themselves to a goal, to a purpose, rather than just the pursuit of power. They don't just flay people alive for no reason. No, they're flaying people alive because they're doing it for the Sith. Of course, Cade doesn't really have any of this. He learns a bit from them. He takes some of their tricks that he's learned, yes. But ultimately, this is where it's kind of interesting, is that Darth Krayt, he instructs all of his followers to sacrifice something to him so that way he knows that they are devoted to him. In this case, he tells Cade to strike down Darth Talon because the two actually like each other a bit. Darth Talon tries to goad him into it, saying, yeah, strike me down. You've learned all that I could teach you. Strike me down. Bring honor to me by striking me down. And Cade says, no, I'm not like that. I'm not like you. I'm not like you guys at all. I'm not a Sith. I'm not gonna fall into your trap. Upon which, Darth Krayt says fine. And he brings in the Jedi, who's constantly been telling Cade, you're a good boy, you got a lot of potential in you, you're gonna bring honor to your ancestors, stuff like that. And he brings that Jedi in front of him and he goes, kill him or I kill him. And it's like, oh my god. Cade Skywalker's like, no, I'm not doing this. And the Jedi just keeps consoling Cade. He's like, don't worry, Cade, it's fine. It's totally okay. Your grandfather, Luke Skywalker, still looks happily upon you. Stuff like that. Finally, Darth Krayt kills him, and Cade just gets pissed. And Darth Krayt starts telling him and teasing him. He's like, see, he died for you. He didn't die for anything else. He died for you. Well, it's in this little skirmish that Cade basically kills Darth Krayt. Now, it's kind of funny is that he doesn't kill Darth Krayt once. He kills him like 2 or 3 times. Because Darth Krayt doesn't really die there. You thought the story was over, bitch? Ha! Psych. Nope. 26 minutes in, we're still going, baby. So, what happens with Darth Krayt? Well, he gets stabbed. He's dying. And he's not quite dead yet from Cade. But Darth Werlock takes advantage of this weakness. And he stabs Darth Krayt in the back. Darth Werlock, his biggest ally, who's been with him since the beginning, has betrayed Darth Krayt. And in doing so, he takes over the one Sith. But his empire kind of starts to crumble, like really, really badly. As after all, many Sith decide to branch off. They all decide, you know what, we don't really like Darth Werlock. We don't feel the power from him like we did with Darth Krayt. We're just going to leave and do our own thing. A few other Sith cults who've been around are starting to rise up again. It's just a shit show. And then the Jedi are being reformed again. There's now Cade Skywalker, who's now devoting himself to becoming a Jedi. Things are just not looking good. The Empire is reforming under the original Emperor's descendancy instead of following Darth Krayt. It's a bad scenario. Well, despite this, Darth Krayt actually lives, surprisingly. He actually reaches in with the Force and uses the Force to nourish his body back into place. Which is, again, odd. I didn't know he had this ability, but apparently he does. And he actually emerges from the crypt alive, but without the armor. So now he's free of the Yuzong Vong implants. He's free of the thing that was killing him. And it's actually a monumental thing, because what happens is he reaches so deep into the dark side that anyone who has been with the dark side, including Cade Skywalker, they all receive a message from Darth Krayt as he reaches out to all of them and he says, my followers, I have returned. Oh my god, that is so badass. He just returns and just kicks ass. Wielding his dual wielding lightsabers, he charges in and slaughters his old former ally, Darth Werlock, and resumes control of the Sith. But it was not quite the way it was. You see, the Empire has obviously pushed him back. Coruscant is more or less not even his anymore. It's just a bad scenario over and over again. Well, he threatens the galaxy once more, and upon which Cade Skywalker takes it up to meet him again. And this time, Darth Krayt tells him, he's like, you're a fool to come here, boy, because I don't need you anymore. I will kill you. And Cade Skywalker just goes, yeah, but my time with you, I've learned a few of your tricks. I'm quite a fast learner. And he kicks Darth Krayt's ass. But it was a very long duel. It was actually kind of close at times. But ultimately, he dies once again. Besides that has been Darth Krayt. I hope you guys look up to him. And upon reviewing this, I realized I've been mispronouncing the name. It's not Zoa or Zenoa. It's actually Lord Zozon. It's Xoxoon. My bad. It's mostly me going by memory here, but then when I decide to look at the Sith Lord list that I have written down here, I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I mispronounced that name. Oh, well. Besides that, I've been Free 700. This was a very long video, because as I said, Darth Krayt is like my favorite Sith Lord for a lot of reasons, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. We've discovered the entire life of this Sith Lord, from the beginnings of him as a Tusken Raider to when he became a Jedi Master to when he became exiled, and now this, when he was a Sith Lord. I've tried to delete a lot of parts because there was a lot to say about this guy, like a lot. Like the whole issue with him and the Empire and the Grand Alliance, there was a lot in there that I could have talked about. His dealings with the Jedi, a lot I could have talked about. But really, I'm trying to like give you guys the meat of this without giving you too much bones. So, besides that, see you guys next time. Comment down below what you guys think of Darth Krayt. I would definitely love to hear your opinions on him, whether or not you may like him now, or whether or not you may just say, he's cool, but I still like this Sith Lord more. See you guys next time.